Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Cellular Wisdom, where we unravel the mysteries of the human body, one intriguing fact at a time, and do it all with a healthy dose of humor. I'm Ethan Foster, the resident straight man, with a penchant for asking the obvious questions and occasionally deploying some dry commentary.
And I'm Alara Sky, the self-declared comedic commentator who views science as a playground for the sharp-witted. If there's a hidden connection to uncover in the human body, I'm all about poking it with a metaphorical stick to see what happens, much to Ethan's eternal amusement.
In today's episode, we're diving into a realm that affects every single one of us daily, whether we know it or not. The complex interplay between gut bacteria, stress responses, and what Dr. Mercola calls cellular wisdom. If you've ever suspected that your gut might be holding clandestine meetings about your mood and metabolism, you're probably onto something.
We'll be exploring why a tiny microbe named Lactobacillus reuteri might be orchestrating parts of your stress routine, how chronic stress can wage war on your gut lining, and how some folks seem to display an uncanny resilience, seemingly thanks, in part, to their microbial friends.
We'll also peek into the cellular level issues that can make or break your health, from mitochondrial energy production to the ways processed food might be messing with your internal equilibrium. If you've ever thought, maybe I should pay more attention to my diet, by the end of this, you'll know exactly why that's not just a good idea. It might be life-changing.
Ready for a journey into the microscopic world that secretly pulls so many of our strings? Then let's jump in. Don't worry, we'll keep it fun, fresh, and loaded with clever observations. Because really, what's the point of learning about your gut if you can't crack a joke or two about it?
Right, so let's talk about the core concept, your gut bacteria's vital role in regulating stress hormones and circadian rhythms. We're talking about trillions of microscopic tenants taking up residence in your intestines, orchestrating a surprising amount of your daily life.
Trillions. That's Trillions, folks. People sometimes say, I feel like there's a whole other world in my belly. Guess what? There is. Think of them like tiny city dwellers commuting through your gut highways, exchanging messages, forming alliances, and occasionally staging revolts when they're upset.
Not to anthropomorphize them too much, but yes, that's basically it. Now, Dr. Mercola's analysis highlights one star player, Lactobacillus reuteri. This particular bacterium seems to peak at certain times of the day, aligning with the natural cycle of corticosterone, a stress hormone that helps regulate your body's circadian rhythm.
Corticosterone is basically the body's keep calm and carry on hormone, which also serves as a messenger for circadian rhythm. If L. reuteri is around and peaking at just the right time, you get a nice synergy of calm and stability, like an orchestra hitting that perfect crescendo.
If you disrupt or deplete your gut bacteria, though, that synergy collapses. Your circadian rhythm starts to wobble. Suddenly, your stress responses are like a car with a misaligned steering wheel. You drift off course easily. Before you know it, it's a 5-lane freeway fiasco.
That's how it impacts your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal HPA axis, the central command center for stress management. The axis tries to adapt, but if your gut isn't providing the right signals at the right times, you might find yourself feeling anxious at the break of dawn or restless at midnight for no obvious reason.
It's like hosting a dinner party without your event planner. You can probably feed people, but the timing of everything goes haywire, and you'll end up serving dessert first, which actually might not be the worst scenario, unless your gut is the one left cleaning up the mess.
To understand just how intimately your gut ties into brain function, we should note that the gut and brain maintain constant communication, especially in areas like the hippocampus and amygdala. These regions handle emotional regulation and stress responses.
If those gut microbes are wiped out, say by antibiotics or by living off ultra-processed foods for weeks on end, this communication becomes garbled. Your hippocampus might lose its sense of how to cope with stress, and your amygdala can ramp up into high alert over minor nuisances.
Next time you find yourself glaring at a coworker because they looked at you funny, maybe your gut bacteria are on vacation. They're no longer sending signals that say, hey, calm down, maybe that glance was just a random thought crossing their mind.
Precisely. In some animal studies, wiping out the microbiome caused notable changes in stress-related behaviors. Anxiety shot up, emotional balance took a nosedive. Add in the fact that certain neurotransmitters like glutamate also shift, and the brain's adaptation to daily stress goes off the rails.
Meanwhile, if you restore certain species like L. reuteri, stress patterns and behaviors can normalize again. It's like rehiring that event planner who smooths out all the friction and gets the show back on the road.
Now, let's move into the resilience aspect. Why do some people handle life's ups and downs like seasoned pros, while others collapse at the first sign of turbulence? According to research in Nature Mental Health, it's partly about what's brewing in your gut.
So if you're the person who can keep calm during a last-minute exam, a speeding ticket, and an unexpected phone call from your boss all on the same day, congratulations. Your gut's probably home to some champion-level bacteria. These strains encourage anti-inflammatory responses and help maintain gut barrier integrity.
Because gut inflammation often translates to brain inflammation, a gut that's in good shape means you're less likely to have your brain hijacked by stress hormones. It's like having well-staffed security at the border between your gut and bloodstream, preventing troublemakers from entering and triggering pandemonium upstairs.
That same study even found that in resilient individuals, bacterial genes were more active in energy production and environmental adaptation. So their guts were better at quickly switching gears under stress. They produce beneficial metabolites, compounds that keep the immune system balanced and help the brain roll with life's punches.
It's a powerful reminder that resilience isn't merely psychological or motivational, it's also rooted in biology. The difference between "I can handle this" and "I'm doomed" might hinge on whether your gut bacteria are doping you up with anti-inflammatory goodness or not.
Let's talk about the cycle of chronic stress. Dr. Mercola emphasizes this is a damaging loop. Stress weakens your gut barrier, allowing more bad actors to slip into circulation, which then inflames your brain, heightening anxiety and, you guessed it, more stress.
Sort of a self-perpetuating hamster wheel of doom, isn't it? Once the stress mechanism kicks in and the gut barrier starts leaking, your body floods with inflammatory signals. These can cross the blood-brain barrier and tinker with the areas that regulate mood and anxiety.
If you're not mindful, you get stuck. Each anxious or stressful episode further degrades the gut, and the degraded gut stokes more anxiety. It's like a cosmic joke, but the punchline is burnout.
Breaking that cycle means strengthening your gut health at the cellular level. Dr. Mercola points out that simply popping a random probiotic might not do the trick, especially if those microbes never make it to the colon, where they're actually needed.
Picture a group of tourists who buy plane tickets, but never make it past baggage claim. They can't see the sights, and your colon never benefits from their presence. You need your beneficial bacteria to arrive at their proper destination in order for them to do any good.
The deeper layer involves mitochondrial function. Mitochondria are the energy powerhouses of your cells, and if they fail, your gut environment can't maintain the conditions beneficial bacteria require.
An oxygen-free environment in the colon is crucial for many beneficial microbes to thrive. If your cells aren't generating enough ATP, your body's energy currency, your gut can't maintain that environment, and opportunistic bacteria that produce toxins might take over.
So if you find that you're constantly fatigued, anxious, and having gut issues, it might be a sign your mitochondria are struggling. Chronic exposure to linoleic acid in seed oils, endocrine disruptors, and electromagnetic fields can all chip away at healthy mitochondrial function.
Before you know it, you have a compromised gut, a compromised mind, and a compromised capacity to bounce back from daily challenges. It's the ultimate triple whammy.
That brings us to the dietary strategies Dr. Mercola advocates. The first major step is cutting out processed foods, especially those loaded with linoleic acid from seed oils. That alone can do wonders in halting the assault on your mitochondria.
Next up is fueling your body with more natural, easily digestible carbohydrates, at least if you're in a severe gut crisis. Dr. Mercola even suggests that for people in dire straits, sipping on dextrose water during the day can help starve harmful bacteria in the colon because dextrose is absorbed in the small intestine.
Most of us might not need that extreme approach, but the principle remains: feed your beneficial bacteria in a balanced way, and avoid inadvertently feeding the troublemakers.
Exactly. And as your gut heals, you can gradually reintroduce fiber-rich foods and more complex carbs. The idea is to rehabilitate your gut environment, not dump a truckload of dietary fiber on an already inflamed system.
The payoff is a healthier microbiome that communicates better with your brain, reduces inflammatory cascades, and helps you handle stress with more finesse.
Let's dig deeper into how these same gut bacteria tie back into your circadian rhythm. We know circadian rhythms are those 24-hour cycles your body follows. Many of us think of them as just sleep-wake cycles, but it's more nuanced. Your gut also follows a clock with different bacteria clocking in at certain times.
If your daily routine is unpredictable, say you work nights one week and days the next, or you're constantly pulling all-nighters, your gut can struggle to keep up. That means your stress hormones might spike at odd hours, leaving you feeling out of sync and perpetually wired or tired.
That's a sure way to sabotage any attempt at maintaining a balanced mental state. Even if you're physically present at 2 p.m., your brain might think it's midnight because your bacterial communities are sending conflicting signals.
If you've ever felt jet-lagged without traveling, that might be your gut, and your circadian rhythm duking it out, courtesy of an erratic schedule.
And while our comedic approach might suggest we find this hilarious, it's no laughing matter when you're the person tossing and turning at night or nearly falling asleep at your desk in the afternoon. Real-life consequences here.
Let's pivot to resilience again, because that's one of the most uplifting parts of Dr. Mercola's discussion. Essentially, if you set up your gut, your cells, and your daily schedule for success, you can achieve something akin to emotional bulletproofing.
Right. Not bulletproof as in nothing ever bothers you, but more like wearing a jacket that can handle some hail without you freezing to the bone. Your stress threshold is higher, and your recovery is faster.
That's because a gut in good shape won't be constantly ringing alarm bells, flooding your brain with inflammatory signals. Instead, it sends out calm messages. Everything's fine here. Keep that mood regulation stable.
Couple that with a decent bedtime, some sunlight exposure in the morning, moderate exercise, and a balanced diet, and you've got a pretty solid foundation for mental well-being.
Notice how we didn't say never eat pizza again, or swear off all carbs for life. A healthy gut and a healthy body can handle indulgences, as long as indulgence is not your default setting.
We're aiming for harmony, not militant discipline. Because ironically, if you become too stressed about perfect health, you could flip the stress switch right back on. Hello, vicious cycle.
Another piece to highlight is that your diet and gut health don't just affect stress in isolation. This feedback loop with the brain can also influence conditions like anxiety, depression, and even neurodegenerative diseases.
Some research has linked specific gut bacteria imbalances to an increased risk of Alzheimer's. The speculation is that pro-inflammatory bacteria produce endotoxins that might trigger or worsen neuroinflammatory processes in the brain.
That's a big reason Dr. Mercola underscores the need to address cellular energy at its core, because if you let that imbalance fester, it's not just your mood or stress that might suffer. Your long-term cognitive health could be at risk.
That's one reason so many functional medicine practitioners hammer the point that all disease begins in the gut. Historically, Hippocrates said something similar, and modern science is catching up to that notion.
The gut-brain axis has a big sign on it that says, under construction, handle with care. If we start ignoring it, the roads get potholes, the traffic lights fail, and we're left with chaos.
Now let's talk about practical steps without turning this into a laundry list. Dr. Mercola's key suggestions revolve around three main pillars: reduce mitochondrial toxins, improve dietary inputs, and support normal circadian rhythms.
Mitochondrial toxins include things like excessive linoleic acid, which lurks in most seed oils. Think corn oil, soybean oil, canola oil. They're all over the place in processed foods. Cutting back on these can help your cells produce ATP more efficiently.
Then there are endocrine disruptors, chemicals that can be in plastics, personal care products, or pesticides. While you can't avoid them entirely, you can minimize your exposure by being selective about the products you buy.
And electromagnetic fields, from Wi-Fi routers to cell phones, are trickier, but you can reduce your nighttime exposure, keep devices away from your body when possible, and try not to treat your smartphone like a security blanket. Little changes might go a long way.
As for diet, we already touched on the notion of eliminating or drastically reducing processed junk. Instead, favor real foods, quality proteins, natural fats, rather than processed oils, and carbs that don't send your system into meltdown.
Then there's the matter of circadian rhythms, one consistent bedtime, some natural morning light, and limiting bright screens late at night. Easier said than done, but it can massively impact your gut's microbial balance and your stress hormone cycles.
No single one of these steps is a magic bullet, but combined, they create a supportive environment where beneficial bacteria thrive, the gut barrier stays intact, and your brain receives fewer frantic, "we're on fire" signals.
If we package all of this back into Dr. Mercola's central message, it's that your gut and your brain are not merely pen pals, they're co-authors of your daily experience. The microbial population inside you has a direct say in whether you greet life's challenges with a zen shrug or a meltdown.
Which is both fascinating and a bit humbling. We like to think we're in control, but behind the scenes, these microscopic neighbors of ours are deeply involved in writing our emotional scripts.
So, if you're feeling out of balance, consider looking beyond the superficial stress management techniques. Think about the environment in your gut. Are you fueling the beneficial microbes or giving free rein to the troublemakers?
And if the latter is the case, you might need to call in some reinforcements, whether that's a strategic shift in diet, better sleep hygiene, or focusing on mitochondrial support. Every little step counts.
Let's do a concise recap for those who like bullet points. Gut, bacteria, and stress. Your gut microbiome plays a major role in regulating stress hormones like corticosterone. Lactobacillus reuteri, among others, peaks at specific times to align with circadian rhythms. Disruption equals dysfunction. Antibiotics, poor diet, and stress can deplete or imbalance gut bacteria, messing with the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. This leads to heightened anxiety, emotional imbalance, and disrupted circadian patterns. Resilience is part microbial. Resilient individuals have distinct gut bacterial compositions that favor anti-inflammatory responses. This biological advantage complements psychological coping, offering better emotional regulation. Chronic stress cycle. Stress weakens the gut barrier, letting toxins and harmful bacteria enter your bloodstream. This triggers inflammation in the brain, intensifying anxiety, and perpetuating a vicious cycle. Mitochondrial connection. Restoring gut health is hard if mitochondria are weak, because beneficial microbes need a low oxygen colon environment. Seed oils, endocrine disruptors, and EMFs can hamper mitochondrial ATP production. Dietary strategies. Reducing processed foods, particularly those high in linoleic acid, helps break the cycle of inflammation. For severe cases, something like sipping dextrose water can starve harmful bacteria in the colon. Gradually reintroduce fiber and other carbs as the gut lining repairs and beneficial microbes regain ground. Circadian rhythms. Your gut bacteria follow diurnal patterns. Keeping a consistent sleep-wake cycle helps maintain microbial balance. Disrupting these rhythms with irregular schedules or late-night electronics can worsen stress and mood imbalances. Practical resilience. True resilience encompasses both mind and body, psychological outlook, plus a microbiome that supports a stable emotional landscape. Minimizing toxins, stabilizing sleep schedules, and feeding your gut properly can create an environment where resilience flourishes.
That's the blueprint, folks. If you ever find yourself thinking, why am I so anxious lately? The answer might lie in what you ate last night, how well you slept, or how often you're mainlining seed oils without knowing it.
And let's not forget the comedic subtext. Your gut is basically alive with drama, alliances, and espionage. You're hosting the grandest reality show ever, and the fate of that show impacts your mood, your sleep, and even your sanity.
So if you want better ratings, i.e., a healthier, happier life, maybe it's time to rewrite the script for those gut microbes. Give them something positive to work with, and they just might send you better plot twists.
Let's move into a few real-life examples or scenarios to illustrate how this might look in practice. Imagine you've been under chronic stress at work. Your stomach's in knots, you're not sleeping well, and you've resorted to quick-fix dinners, fast food, or microwave meals.
In that state, your gut barrier's probably thinning out, letting inflammatory compounds slip into your bloodstream. You feel fatigued, yet wired, anxious, yet too exhausted to cope. It's a classic running on fumes scenario.
Then you decide to make changes. You switch out seed oils for healthier fats, cut down on sugar-laden snacks, and keep a consistent bedtime. Maybe you toss in a 20-minute walk each day for good measure.
Over a few weeks, your gut barrier starts to repair, inflammation calms down, and your brain receives fewer panic signals from the gut. Suddenly, you're sleeping more soundly and not flipping out when your coworker messages you at 4:59 p.m. on a Friday.
That's the power of aligning your actions with your body's natural design. It's not rocket science, it's cellular wisdom.
Which is exactly the point Dr. Mercola keeps making. If you give your cells, gut bacteria included, the right environment, they'll often do the heavy lifting of keeping you balanced.
Of course, we're not saying this is a panacea. If someone has a severe condition, they might need deeper interventions. But even then, improving gut health can serve as a foundational layer, a scaffolding on which other treatments can build.
Precisely. Sometimes turning your diet and routine around can amplify the benefits of therapy or medication, if those are part of your plan. By stabilizing the gut-brain axis, you might get more mileage out of every other health strategy.
That's a refreshing angle, especially in a world where people often feel powerless, like they have to rely on external fixes. A large portion of healing is in your hands, or more accurately, in your daily choices.
And that extends to all sorts of conditions, not just stress or anxiety. A healthy gut can influence hormones, weight management, immune function, and even skin health. You'd be amazed how many pathways trace back to the gut.
It's basically the backstage pass to your entire bodily opera. When you treat it well, it can deliver an amazing performance.
Let's also highlight the importance of mindful consumption beyond just food, thinking about what digital media or environmental exposures do to stress levels. Because if you're constantly bombarded by negative news or addictive social media, your sympathetic nervous system might be perpetually activated.
And guess who also suffers when your sympathetic nervous system revs up? That's right, your gut. Because a stressed-out nervous system directs resources away from digestion and other rest and repair activities.
So yes, your phone habits might be messing with your microbiome. One more reason to set boundaries or practice some digital detox. It's not just about mental peace. It's literally about physical health too.
Which is a neat segue into Dr. Mercola's perspective that modern living, loaded with toxins, digital overstimulation, and poor dietary habits, has upended our natural balance. We didn't evolve for this level of constant assault.
But the hopeful part is that we can adapt by making strategic changes. We might not go back to living in caves, but we can certainly cut down on the negativity, the processed foods, and the artificial lights at 3 a.m.
Let's bring it home with a final thought. The concept of cellular wisdom is about recognizing that your body isn't a random collection of parts. It's a highly coordinated system that runs best when each piece supports the other.
Gut microbes are like the unsung heroes in that system. If you keep them happy and well-fed in the right ways, they'll lend you the resilience and clarity you need to navigate the ups and downs of life.
That means acknowledging that stress, diet, sleep, and environment form a tapestry, If one thread unravels, the rest can follow. But if you keep those threads strong and well aligned, you get a resilient, functioning masterpiece.
Couldn't have said it better. And once you start seeing results, maybe you're calmer, sharper, less bloated, or sleeping more soundly, you'll know you're on the right track. Improvement begets motivation, which begets more improvement.
And so, the virtuous cycle continues, ultimately guiding you toward a healthier, more balanced version of yourself. That's Dr. Mercola's message in a nutshell, and it's ours too.
And that, dear listeners, wraps up our deep dive into how gut bacteria modulate stress responses, build resilience, and shape the grand drama of our day-to-day existence.
Thanks for tuning in to Cellular Wisdom. We hope we've given you a reason, or maybe trillions of reasons, to pay closer attention to what's going on in your gut.
Until next time, take care of those microbes, treat your mitochondria kindly, and remember that a good night's sleep might just be the best probiotic you can ever give yourself.
Stay curious, stay healthy, and keep that sense of humor alive, because a laugh here and there is practically a love letter to your gut.
Exactly. You feed your microbiome with the right foods and the right vibes, and it'll pay you back in emotional stability, energy, and good old-fashioned resilience. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Catch you on the next episode. Stay well.